Discover the amazing moment when a black waiter's incredible response to a Chinese billionaire changes everything. Darnell felt the chaos swirling around him as he rushed between tables, the lunchtime crowd buzzing like a hive. The smell of sizzling burgers and fresh pies mixed with the weight of his responsibilities, his three younger siblings dependent on him for everything. In the diner, a medley of voices clashed, but Darnell was used to navigating the noise. It was part of the daily grind he faced head-on. Yet today promised more than just the hustle. It was about to become a moment that would redefine everything. Then, the door swung open, and in walked Mr. Lin, a man whose presence instantly commanded the room. He was a Chinese billionaire, draped in expensive fabrics and an air of authority. Darnell hesitated just a moment as a wave of mixed emotions spread through the diner. Some patrons whispered in disbelief. Others cast sidelong glances at Darnell, as if sizing him up against the expectations of what a high-status guest deserved. Their judgment hung heavy in the air like a storm cloud de mar. Lin sat down, oblivious to the scrutiny, and placed an extravagant order: scallops, truffle fries, a rare vintage wine. Darnell's blood ran hot. He could feel the weight of the eyes on him intensify. Yet, he straightened his shoulders, and his commitment to serve shone through. With a warm smile, he jotted down the order, determined to show that he like anyone could rise to the occasion. As he began to deliver Mr. Lin's meal, words reached his ears. A couple nearby snickered, their voices dripping with disdain. "What does he know about real service?" one said, eyes narrowing at Darnell. It stung, and for a moment, he internally battled the urge to step away from the barrage of sneers. But something inside him clicked, a feeling of solidarity sparked by the shared experiences of both Mr. Lin and himself. Standing up straight, Darnell stepped closer, hoping his voice would silence the whispers. "Excuse me," he said, his heart racing but his voice firm. "I know what it's like to struggle. I lost both my parents and have been raising my siblings ever since. It takes hard work, just like what Mr. Lin's done to get where he is. So, maybe consider that before judging." Gasps echoed through the diner, as a silence settled, heavy with disbelief and a touch of respect. Darnell continued, sharing the dreams they hold, the sacrifices made in pursuit of a better life, and how connection transcends backgrounds. As those powerful words poured out, walls of prejudice began to crumble. Mr. Lin's face lit up with appreciation, a smile born not only from kindness but from understanding. "Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen." Now let's continue. The room seemed to swell with a new energy, faces softening from judgment to understanding. A few patrons even nodding in agreement. And while Darnell could feel the warmth spreading among the crowd, murmurs of dissent still flickered. Not everyone was pleased with this newfound connection. As applause erupted, Darnell felt tears of relief sting at his eyes. Hope flickered within him, a hope that perhaps he could not only uplift Mr. Lin but also lift his own siblings from the weight of their struggles. But as the applause echoed, a thought gnawed at him: could this brave leap create lasting bonds in a world still so divided? And what would be the price of challenging those who dared to judge? Darnell's heart raced, not just from the applause but from the realization of something bigger at play. The room felt different now. The tension that once hung heavy had dissipated, replaced with an air of camaraderie. Yet he couldn't shake off the whispers still lingering in the corners of the diner, a reminder that acceptance was tentative and fragile. Lin's reaction was all he had hoped for. A gentle nod, an appreciative look, it confirmed Darnell's instinct that he wasn't alone in this struggle to be seen for who he truly was. But as he looked around the diner, Darnell's optimism slightly faded when he caught sight of a table where the couple still wore scowls of discontent. Their disagreement was palpable, a stark reminder that not everyone would share in this shift of acceptance. Thank you for your words, Mr. Lin said, his deep voice resonating in the now quiet diner. Your courage inspires more than you know. Just doing my best, Darnell replied, humbly, rubbing the back of his neck as if to brush off the weight of the moment. He wished he could sit down with Mr. Lin, share stories over truffle fries, and discuss dreams and plans. But there were still orders to fill, and his siblings were waiting at home. He forced a smile and returned to his duties. In the back of the diner, however, the energy had changed. He noticed a few patrons leaning in, engaging in conversation, perhaps even a new commitment to understanding. Darnell felt a flicker of hope blooming, yet it felt oddly out of reach. Hey, Darnell. It was Jenna, one of the regulars. She had a soft smile that made her look almost motherly. That was incredible what you did. I've been in your shoes, starting out, trying to prove myself. Her eyes sparkled with unshed tears. If anyone can make it, it's you. Thank you, Jenna, he replied, feeling warmth flood through him. Words like hers helped him believe that change, however small, was possible. Maybe even monumental. As customers moved about, Darnell caught glimpses of himself in the reflection of the diner's windows. He was still that same guy working hard to make ends meet, but now he was layered with something deeper: a voice, a penny for hope maybe, and a new expectation of respect. But the heavier questions tugged at him. His siblings needed him more than ever. Could he balance this newfound voice with the ongoing battle at home, ensuring their lives improved because of it? What if this moment meant more than he could imagine, but also brought challenges he hadn't yet faced? As the lunch rush began to simmer down, chaos morphed into calm. Darnell's gaze shifted back to Mr. Lin, who was now engaging with another table. There was a magnetism in his smile, something that attracted everyone around him. Suddenly, Darnell's phone buzzed in his pocket, jolting him out of his thoughts. He pulled it out, half expecting a text from his sister. Instead, it was an email notification, a message from a local news outlet inviting him to share his story. Heart pounding, he stared at the screen, excitement and trepidation swirling inside him. What if this was his chance? What if this could launch him beyond the diner and into something that could change all their lives? But then, a nagging doubt crept in. What if stepping into the spotlight put him and his family at risk? What if those who judged him today would use his story against him tomorrow? With a sigh, Darnell tucked his phone away and caught Mr. Lin's eye. They shared a look, and in that moment, it was as if Mr. Lin understood the gravity of the crossroads Darnell faced. There was a tentative smile exchanged, a silent agreement that the journey was just beginning. As Darnell turned to his next table, he felt the weight of the choice pressing down. Would he embrace the chance for greatness, or would he hold back for the sake of safety? Behind him, the diner buzzed with life, but in his heart, Darnell knew the true battle lay ahead. What choice would he make, and how would it affect not just him, but everyone he loved? The next step would determine it all. Darnell's mind raced as he moved between the tables, trying to focus on the orders rather than the uncertainty weighing on him. The prospect of sharing his story sparked a fire of hope, but the flicker of doubt threatened to extinguish it. Could he really do this? As lunch shifted into coffee and dessert, Darnell took a moment to lean against the counter, watching the busy kitchen behind the diner's open window. The steam from the pots rose like an invisible curtain, offering a sense of warmth and comfort that he desperately craved. He remembered growing up in a world that often felt cold and unwelcoming, the kind of world that seemed to squeeze the air from your lungs. Look alive. Who's next? Shouted Clara, the head chef, making Darnell jump slightly. Coming right up. He replied, forcing a grin, but his heart wasn't in it. He knew he had to talk to Mr. Lin. That brief moment of connection had shifted something inside him, and he couldn't let it slip away. Darnell. Mr. Lin's voice rang out like a bell. The room quieted slightly as people turned their heads, intrigued by the interaction. Care to have a moment?
Sure, yeah, Darnell responded, feeling the brightness of the situation clash with the shadows of his thoughts as he approached.
Mr. Lin gestured to an empty booth. Come, sit with me. The moment felt surreal. Darnell slid into the seat across from the well-dressed man who seemed to radiate confidence. Images of how the diner had changed that day flashed in his mind, the laughter, the smiles, the spark of something new. This was an opportunity to voice his journey, his struggles. I was really moved by what you said, Mr. Lin began, leaning in slightly, his dark eyes keen and understanding. Courage like that is rare. And it's vital. Darnell swallowed hard. Thanks, but I'm just trying to cope, you know. Life's messy, and I have to think about my siblings. They depend on me. I understand, Mr. Lin said, nodding thoughtfully. Burdening others with our problems for the sake of safety can sometimes feel easier, but remember that your voice carries power. You can inspire others. You already have today. Darnell felt the truth of those words sink deep. He could already see reflections of himself in the diner's eyes, the hope dancing alongside recognition. But the weight of his family's struggles pressed heavily on his chest. What if stepping up makes things worse for them? What if I let them down? Mr. Lin paused, his gaze unwavering. It's a risk, but so is standing still. Greatness isn't achieved in the background. Think bigger. What do you want to contribute to this world? How can your story help others who feel lost? You all deserve a voice. Silence hung between them, filled with possibility. Darnell blinked, his throat tightening as he reimagined life not just as a survival skill, but as a platform for change. The thought was dizzying. Just then, the sound of laughter erupted from the far side of the diner. A group of customers cheered another successful order. Darnell's heart swelled with contrasting emotions, excitement and fear. Could he really turn this moment into something powerful? Darnell's phone buzzed again, pulling him back. An email from the news outlet. He needed to decide, would he let fear dictate his future? He looked back at Mr. Lin, who seemed to sense the storm inside him and offered a warm, encouraging smile. Remember, Darnell, he said softly, the world needs your story. It may just ignite something extraordinary. With that, Darnell's thoughts raced. What would happen if he took a leap into the unknown? But was he ready to embrace the life-altering consequences that came with it? As he left Mr. Lin's table, the weight of possibility hung heavy in the air. Ahead of him lay a choice that could redefine everything he held dear. Would he step into the light, or shrink back into the shadows? Whatever he decided would change not just his life, but the lives of those around him. Darnell stepped back from the booth, his heart pounding as he navigated the diner's bustling patrons. The chatter, the clinking of coffee cups, the sizzling sounds from the kitchen, it all felt like a distant echo. Each step led him closer to a decision that seemed both thrilling and terrifying. He caught a glimpse of Mr. Lin still watching him, a beacon of encouragement. That steady gaze ignited something within him, urging him not just to think but to act. He could see it now, a thread connecting his life's struggles to the stories of others. Wasn't that what Mr. Lin had meant? That by sharing, he could not only free himself but uplift those around him. With a shaky breath, Darnell pulled out his phone, staring at the email from the news outlet. The major chance to share his story was there, a little flicker of light in his uncertain universe. He pictured his siblings, each one relying on him. Would sharing his truth jeopardize their safety, or might it open the door to better opportunities? He pressed his thumb over the open button, and the screen lit up with a blank space requiring his thoughts. Could he write something real? Would they even want to hear it? Imposter syndrome clawed at him. Who was he to believe his story mattered? Suddenly, the weight of the moment felt overwhelming. The clamor of laughter from the other side of the diner felt mocking in its brightness, and he wanted to retreat into the familiar chaos of work. Just then, Clara called out from the kitchen, "Darnell. We need you at table 6. He jumped at the sound, the urgency breaking his reverie. As he hurried away, the email stayed on his mind like an anchor. What was he afraid of? This was more than just him, it was about the journey his family had faced together. Table 6 was a family with young children, faces smeared with chocolate from the desserts. Darnell approached with a genuine smile. Joy was palpable in the air. "Hey there. How was everything?" he asked, feeling their energy. As the parents chimed excitedly about their meals, Darnell realized how moments like these stitched together the fabric of joy in everyday life. Each bustling interaction, every laugh shared within the diner was a thread in a larger community. Suddenly, amidst the giggles and cheers, a thought hit him. What if he could harness this warmth, the laughter and the smiles, to weave his own story into something beautiful? "What are you thinking about?" One of the children looked up at him, her bright eyes curious. Darnell chuckled, his earlier doubt momentarily dissipating. "Just about how every meal means something. It's a story waiting to be told, you know." The little girl nodded seriously, as if she understood. As he returned to the counter, he contemplated how stories could break barriers. His heart flickered with determination. He could be the voice some of them needed, just like Mr. Lin had suggested. With renewed vigor, he clicked open the email draft. But before he could type, a sudden commotion erupted from the front door. He looked up to see a tall figure enter, dressed in sharp clothes, followed closely by a camera crew. Darnell's breath caught in his throat. This was no ordinary visitor, it was a famous local influencer known for telling stories of struggle and triumph. The energy in the diner shifted. Laughter faded into murmurs of disbelief. What would happen next? Would Darnell's chance to share his story suddenly materialize in front of this crowd? As he stood there, the unpredictable wave of hope merged with fear. Was fate pushing him toward his moment? The influencer scanned the crowd, and then, by some magnetic pull, Darnell felt those eyes land on him. All of a sudden, life could change in an instant. Would he embrace it, or retreat yet again? Darnell's heart raced as the influencer's presence washed over the diner like a tide. He kept his eyes fixed on the man, hoping against hope that he'd feel that magnetic pull again. But instead the weight of uncertainty settled around him like a heavy cloak. Would he be just another face in the crowd, or could he climb this unexpected stage? The influencer smiled, his charisma glowing like a beacon. He directed his gaze toward Darnell, gesturing as if inviting him into the spotlight. Every nerve tingled with possibility. Darnell's pulse thundered in his ears. This was it. A chance to be seen, perhaps even to be heard. "Hey there." The influencer called out, his voice confidence wrapped in warmth. "What's it like waiting tables in a place like this? Have any amazing stories?" Darnell's throat went dry. A million responses flashed through his head, but nothing felt right. The press of the moment made him feel small, yet an ember of defiance sparked inside him. He took a deep breath, feeling all those collected emotions swell: his struggles, his hopes, the weight of his family's expectations. There was a pause, and he could sense the diner holding its breath. "It's more than just serving food," he found his voice. "Every order comes with a story. Every plate carries the laughter and the tears of those who sit at these tables. These meals, they connect us." The words felt strange, but they flowed out as if they'd been tucked away, ready to escape. The little girl he'd spoken to earlier grinned brightly, and he caught the eye of Mr. Lin, who nodded in support. "Wow." The influencer leaned in, genuinely interested. "You've got a real talent for storytelling. That's powerful. Do you write?" Darnell's heart fluttered. Could he admit it? His aspirations, his desires? The truth hung heavy, yet liberating. "Not really. But I wanted to write my own story and maybe share it with others who need to hear it." The influencer's gaze softened. "You should. Everyone has a story, and yours could inspire so many. You'd be surprised at how just sharing it can spark change." As he spoke, Darnell felt a warmth grow in his chest. The diners around him murmured in approval. He caught snippets of conversations: admiration, surprise, even awe. For the first time, he realized he wasn't alone in this. Suddenly, the camera crew sprang into action, pointing their lenses at Darnell. The influencer gestured for him to step forward. Darnell's breath caught, the diner buzzing with anticipation. Each face around him seemed to shine with encouragement. "Tell us more," the influencer urged, eyes sparkling. "What do you want the world to know?" Darnell's mind raced. Would they really listen? Could he find the words? The room felt smaller, the stakes higher. He could feel the weight of his family's struggles and dreams riding on his shoulders. It was more than a story, it was a lifeline that he opened his mouth to speak, but the sound of a glass shattering sent shocks through the diner. Glass shards littered the floor, a sudden breaking of the moment's magic. Heads turned, and chaos erupted momentarily, drowning out his thoughts, but in that moment of distraction, Darnell felt the flicker of courage flame brighter within him. This was it. Life wasn't always perfect, but the power of sharing was undeniable. He took a deep breath, steadied himself, and looked straight into the camera. "I guess it's time to share," he said, voice steady, "not just my story, but our story." What awaited him next? The lens focused tighter, the world watching. Could he truly reveal the struggles, the laughter, the resilience? Would his voice carry hope for those who felt unheard? The moment hung in the air, suspended between fear and immense potential. What lay ahead in his unfolding tale? Darnell's eyes darted around the diner, unsure of where to direct his thoughts next. The glass lay shattered on the floor, echoing the hesitation that twisted in his gut. What if he faltered? What if this moment slipped through his fingers like sand? But just as doubt began to creep in, he felt the warmth of the diner's collective gaze. Strangers now transformed into an audience, rooting for him. The little girl with the bright smile was nodding earnestly, as if she believed in him more than he did himself. Mr. Lin had leaned forward, anticipation etched on his face, and there was even an elderly couple at the back who formed a silent pact of encouragement. Darnell looked back at the influencer, who held eye contact with a steady intensity. "The world needs to hear real stories," the influencer said softly, "yours could be one of them." Taking another deep breath, Darnell pushed away the noise in his mind. "Okay," he began, feeling the weight of expectation settle in. "There's a story I've kept close. It's about my family." The room quieted. He could almost hear the heartbeat of each listener. "Growing up, my parents worked hard, 2 jobs each, day in and day out." His voice grew stronger as he recalled the struggle. "They came to this country with hopes and dreams, like so many others. They wanted me to have a better life, but the reality was tough. I've seen my dad put in hours at the construction site and my mom take extra shifts at a local store, all so I could stay in school." The room felt smaller as he shared his truth, a rising tide of ownership pushing against those long-held fears. "I used to think success meant having money or a fancy job, but I realized it's much bigger than that. It's about connections, about lifting others as you rise." The influencer smiled warmly, encouraging him to continue. "Every table I serve here is a part of that journey," Darnell continued, feeling an unfamiliar exhilaration surge through him. "From the lonely diner who just needs a meal to the family celebrating every moment is a reminder that we're all in this together. There's joy in sharing my stories, and even more in hearing the stories of others." As he spoke, the hum of the diner swelled again, like an orchestra tuning up before a big performance. He met the eyes of those around him, feeling the electric energy of support. Last month, a regular came in. He sat alone, a look of despair on his face. "I'd seen him before, but never like this. I decided to sit with him, share my story and listen to his." He opened up about losing a family member, someone he loved dearly. "In that sadness, we laughed, we cried, and we reminded each other that we are never truly alone." Tears began to well in the little girl's eyes, and Darnell paused, the collective breath of the diner holding the weight of his story. "I realized I didn't just serve food that day, I served compassion. That's what I want to share, the importance of connection in a world that sometimes feels so divided." The influencer sat back, a hint of pride in his expression. "That's beautiful, Darnell. You're not just a waiter. You're a storyteller, a bridge for others to connect. The joy on Darnell's face lit up the dim diner, hoping to spark something in the hearts of those listening. Would this be enough? Would it resonate beyond these walls? As applause broke out, a wave of relief washed over him. But as quickly as the moment soared, it crashed back down. There was still something left unsaid, a lingering fear that still clung to the edges of his thoughts. The influencer leaned in again. What's next for you, Darnell? He hesitated. I guess I want to write. Share these stories with a wider audience. In that instant, a new kind of fear ignited within him, a fear of the unknown. Could he do it? Just then, the door swung open, and a group of rowdy, distracted diners poured in, shifting the energy once more. Darnell's heart raced anew. What distractions would this bring? What would his next opportunity reveal? He couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. The next chapter was waiting, and he had to brave the edges of uncertainty once more. The noise from the new arrivals distracted Darnell, pulling him from his moment of clarity. Laughter and shouts filled the diner, an abrupt contrast to the calm that had just enveloped him. It felt like a sudden storm had swept in, scattering the warmth and connection he had just built. A tall man in an expensive suit strode in, commanding attention. His laughter was loud and boisterous, and he seemed to radiate confidence. The rest followed closely, animated and oblivious to the envious whispers of his entourage. Darnell couldn't help but notice how different this group was from the regulars he interacted with daily. His heart sank a little. Would they care about his story? The waiter's optimism had flared, but now uncertainty flickered again in the back of his mind. Would they laugh at him instead of finding meaning? He felt a slight chill run through him, a feeling that his previous connection might dissipate as quickly as it had grown dim. Lynn, still sitting at the counter, turned the other way, casting a wary glance toward the loud newcomers. Darnell noted how quickly the mood shifted. Human connection was fragile, swayed by ego and arrogance, it seemed. But he couldn't let that spoil this unexpected moment of resilience he found. He needed to keep focusing on what mattered. Hey, it's fine, he whispered to himself. Just breathe. You're stronger than you think. As laughter echoed, Darnell returned his attention to the influencer. Look, I really mean it. I want to write, he insisted, the edge of enthusiasm returning. My story, our stories, they matter. They resonate. The influencer nodded encouragingly. Then do it. Take that step. You seem to understand the heartbeat of your community. Share it. Darnell felt a flicker of courage at those words. The new group was still loud and rowdy, seemingly unaware of the impact their presence had on everyone else. But he knew that didn't change the essence of what he wanted to share. It shouldn't matter. Just then, one of the suits swaggered up to the counter, interrupting Darnell's thoughts. What's good here? He asked, his tone flippant, as if he was letting a subordinate know his order. Darnell straightened, forcing a smile that masked the tightness in his chest. Everything is great, sir. But I recommend the meatloaf. We make it special. He met the man's eyes, determined to convey his sincerity, even as the guy rolled his. Meatloaf? The man scoffed, exchanging a laugh with his friends. I'll take the special. Not that peasant food. Darnell felt his heart clench. For a moment, he was back in high school, feeling the sting of a locker room taunt. But he drew a deep breath, channeling everything he just revealed. You might find it more fulfilling than you think. It's made with love. The businessman paused, then rolled his eyes dismissively. Whatever, dude. And with that, the man turned away, oblivious. As he walked back, Darnell faced the crowd once more, his pulse pounding with frustration, but in that moment, a realization washed over him. They might not want to hear his story, but that didn't mean he should stop telling it. The diners who genuinely cared were still there, and they were worth his attention. He looked back at the little girl. She was still watching, her eyes wide and shining with hope. Darnell squared his shoulders. "I still believe in connection," he said louder, drawing the attention of those seated. "Every story can bring us together. I want to write them, create a space where everyone can feel valued, just like we do here." And just like that, against the backdrop of unwanted noise, he felt warmth return, an ember of connection ignited again, ready to grow. But just as he was about to dive deeper into the conversation, a man from the back shouted, "How can we help make that happen?" Darnell blinked, surprised. Was someone genuinely offering support? How far could this go? He felt a swell of hope. Was this the turning point, the moment that reached beyond the diner? What if he could inspire others, even those who didn't yet see the value in genuine connection? His heart raced with possibilities. What lay ahead for him? As he opened his mouth to answer, Darnell noticed the influencer watching him closely, a knowing smile on his face. Then, just as Darnell began to respond, he heard something that sent a shiver down his spine, a voice from the back. "I know your story, Darnell. And it's time for you to share it with the world." Who was this person? What did they know? Darnell's heart raced, barely able to process the words that echoed through the diner. The voice resonated like a bell ringing in a quiet room, stirring the crowd and drawing their attention toward the back. He squinted, searching for the source. A figure emerged from the shadows, framed by the garish light of a nearby neon sign. It was a woman, her hair cascading down her shoulders like a waterfall of ink. Darnell didn't recognize her. She looked familiar yet distant, as if he had known her in another life. The intensity of her gaze cut through the chatter, and all eyes fixated on her and then back to him. "What do you mean you know my story?" Darnell managed, his voice trembling slightly. She stepped forward, her posture bold but inviting. "I've read your letters, Darnell," she said, her confidence unshakable. "The ones you used to write to the newspaper before it shut down. You spoke about loss, hope, and perseverance. Those words matter." The weight of her statement hit him like a wave. His words from so long ago seemed to resonate with the present. He had poured his heart into those letters, sharing the stories of the people in his neighborhood, the struggles they'd faced, the beauty in their resilience. But seeing her here reminded him of how much he had wanted to be heard, how desperately he longed for validation. "Your voice deserves to be shared," she continued, her tone earnest. "People need to hear about your journey, especially now." Darnell felt his breath catch. But who would care? His voice wavered, a mixture of vulnerability and doubt spilling out. "Who is going to listen to a server?" The words stung as he said them, echoing his own insecurities. A murmur swept through the diner, eyes darting from Darnell to the woman. Sensing the weight of his struggle, she shook her head. "You don't understand. The stories of the unrecognized are often the most powerful. They shine a light on the realities that people ignore." Her words ignited something deep within him. It was a spark of courage, a whisper of truth that told him he was more than just a server. He was a storyteller. As Darnell searched her eyes, he saw a well of understanding, like she had lived through her share of battles too. It made him wonder what stories she held. "Why are you here?" he asked, curiosity edging out his apprehension. "I'm here to help," she said. "To show you the path forward. There's a platform waiting for voices like yours." Her smile was inviting, and Darnell felt a flicker of possibility. A ripple of anticipation spread through the crowd. Their expressions shifted from curiosity to excitement as they sensed a moment of transformation ready to unfold. "Let's take this further," she continued passionately. "What can we do together to make your story matter, to make it real?" That question hung in the air, reverberating in Darnell's heart. What if he could actually weave these threads of connection into something tangible? He could inspire people. In the arms of the community that lifted him, he felt a responsibility now to give back. Before Darnell could speak, a voice echoed from the crowd, "I'll help with the research." Another chimed in, "I can connect you with writers." Batch after batch of encouragement flowed, wrapping around Darnell like a warm embrace. The laughter that had once filled the diner faded, replaced by a solemn resolve and buzz of intention. For the first time, he envisioned a path ahead not just for himself, but for everyone whose story needed to be told. Darnell looked back at the influencer, who locked eyes with him, the corner of his mouth lifting in an approving smile, but before he could decide what to say next, the woman leaned in, her voice low but strong. Just remember, Darnell. Fear and greatness often dance together. It's time to step into the light. Are you ready? A surge of energy washed over him, a potent mix of fear and hope. Could he truly be ready to take this leap? The diner held its breath, hanging on his response. Darnell stood tall, heart racing. A cacophony of emotion swelled within him: hope, daring, anticipation. What would happen next? What stories would unfold, and who would he become? Let us do it, he breathed, feeling the fire burn brighter within him. In that moment, the possibilities felt endless, but the question loomed larger: would he be able to face the truth that lay ahead, even if it meant confronting his deepest fears? Darnell inhaled sharply, ready to step into this uncharted territory. The whispers and murmurs of support wrapped around him like a comforting blanket, pushing him forward. Each voice was a reminder that he wasn't alone, that the world, despite its harsh edges, held the promise of connection. Okay, he said, only halfway believing his own words. Let us do it. The room seemed to breathe a collective sigh of relief, tension dropping like the weight of unspoken fears. The woman's eyes sparkled with a knowing excitement, and Darnell felt the warmth radiate from her presence. Great! We'll start by gathering more stories, more perspectives. Everyone here has something to offer, she encouraged, her hands gesturing broadly as she spoke. Darnell looked around at the crowd, a rush of gratitude swelling inside him. He saw familiar faces, regulars from the diner, neighbors who stopped by just to say hi, and even former schoolmates, their eyes glimmering with potential enthusiasm for what could be. Why hadn't he seen it before? This was his community, united in a shared purpose, ready to lift each other up. A voice near the front called out, I can share my story about how I rebuilt my family after losing everything. Another added, and I can talk about how our businesses thrived through the hard times. Each contribution stoked the fire inside Darnell. They weren't just strangers, they were pieces of a beautiful mosaic waiting to be assembled, their stories together creating a tapestry of resilience, hope, and truth. What do we need to do? Darnell asked, his voice now richer with determination. The woman moved closer, her eyes focused intently on him. We'll create a series of interviews and features. We'll take the struggles, the triumphs, and weave them together. They will be published, shared, a real platform for real stories. Your stories. The thought sent a thrill down Darnell's spine. But alongside that surge of excitement, a flicker of doubt crept back in. What if no one cares? What if they're too busy? She smiled softly, as if understanding the battle still brewing within him. But what if they do? You've already made an impact with your letters, Darnell. Imagine the lives you could touch with this. He nodded slowly, envisioning faces lighting up at stories that echoed their own hardships. It was a foundation he could build on, a legacy of hope waiting to unfold. Then, almost instinctively, he spoke, I can start writing again. It felt monumental, like laying the first brick in a new path. Absolutely. The woman affirmed, her voice ringing with enthusiasm. And we can organize workshops too. People can learn how to tell their stories, and we can guide them. She turned to the crowd, her voice rising. Who wants to help us? We need writers, artists, photographers, anyone who can lend their skills and creativity to this. It was a catalyst, hands shot up. I can help with social media. Someone yelled. I'll handle the editing. Another voice chimed in, Darnell couldn't help but grin. The energy in the diner shifted. What began as spontaneous support was evolving into a movement. The symbiotic pulse of shared dreams filled the air, electrifying every corner of the diner. Suddenly, a loud crash sounded from the kitchen. Everyone froze, eyes darting to the door. Then, just as quickly as the tension spiked, laughter erupted as a waitress emerged, dropping a tray of dishes. "Guess we're in a hurry to make this happen," she joked, winking at Darnell. Laughter spread like ripples, and that moment, light and mockery became the thread that knit them all tighter together. Darnell glanced at the woman, and she appeared more radiant than ever. "This is good," he said, his voice filled with warmth. "Yes," she replied. "This is the start. But remember, the real journey begins when we put those fears to rest." His heart raced at the possibilities arising. But then a thought struck him, a whisper at the back of his mind. What do we do if someone tells a story that exposes the ugly truths we're afraid to confront? The room fell silent, each person contemplating the weight of that question. There it was, the unvarnished reality of storytelling. It wasn't just about beauty and triumphs, but also the unavoidable darkness. Would everyone be ready to embrace that? Darnell felt a lump in his throat as he met the influencer's eye, apprehension mingling with the courage that had begun to swell. He realized then that this path was just as much about confronting the shadows as it was about celebrating the light, and just like that, uncertainty lingered like an echo in the air. What would they do with the truth when it demanded to be heard? As Darnell stood in the center of the diner, the questions swirled like autumn leaves caught in a gentle breeze. Each face surrounded him held a longing for connection, a shared understanding that stories mattered, ugly truths and all. The energy pulsed with an electric buzz, prompting him to embrace the challenge. "It's about honesty," he finally said, his voice steady now. "People need to hear the full spectrum of life. The struggles, the heartaches, that's what makes the triumphs meaningful." A nod of agreement swept through the crowd, and the warmth radiated back to him. Mr. Lin leaned forward, his eyes shining with that same recognition of significance. "You're right, Darnell. We all have moments we wish to obscure. It's what binds us." The woman's presence was like a sunbeam piercing through the uncertainty. She smiled, her faith in him shining bright enough to dissipate the doubt lingering in the air. The world has a way of sidestepping the truth. But it's the truth that can ignite change. So are you ready to embrace both your light and your shadows? Darnell inhaled deeply, thinking of his siblings, their laughter, their struggles, the relentless hope that coursed through their lives. "Yes," he breathed out, feeling an exhilarating rush. "The time has come to share everything, the real story, the reality." Cheers erupted from the crowd. It was the kind of applause that came not just from admiration but from recognition of a journey shared. Encouragement filled the diner's corners, bouncing off walls that once echoed doubt. "Let us gather everyone's stories," Darnell proclaimed, enthusiasm bubbling. "We'll create a space for the unspoken, for honestly sharing our journeys, where every voice matters." "What's next?" someone shouted from the back, their face bright with determination. "Let us meet regularly," Darnell suggested excitedly. "We'll hold workshops, share resources, and draft our stories together. We'll normalize speaking up." Nods and murmurs of agreement echoed in the diner, each soul igniting another. With a spark of inspiration sparking from within, Darnell turned towards the influencer, who observed him with pride. "Can we have a launch event?" Darnell asked. "Gather the community, share our first stories aloud." "Yes," the influencer exclaimed, a wide grin splitting his face. "Bring in local readers, share snippets of your journey, bring the world to see." Darnell could see it now, the laughter mixed with tears, shared confessions, voices rising confidently in focus, spreading realization and understanding across the community. A voice rose from the back of the diner. "I'll print flyers." Another chimed in, "I'll host a social media group." The sense of unity grew, blossoming around them like the first blooms of spring. In that moment, Darnell realized he was no longer just a waiter in a diner. He was a connector, a storyteller, part of a community that embraced each other's realities. He felt a heartwarming surge of pride alongside relief. Then, as the day unfolded, he glanced out the window, the golden sunlight spilling through, and he remembered his siblings. Their dreams mirrored his own, their future intertwined within his efforts. He could already feel it. This was how he could change the trajectory of their lives. Does anyone want to share their story right now? Darnell asked, his heart racing. Let us practice. Hands shot up, eager faces shining with anticipation. The first voice came from a woman in the corner, her shy demeanor brightening as she shared her tale of resilience after loss, of finding light amidst shadow. Others followed, their stories a patchwork of triumphs and challenges braided together in a colorful tapestry, the laughter, the tears, it all felt like a beautiful chaos, each narrative drawing them closer together, a community truly connected. As Darnell soaked it all in, he felt alive, and for perhaps the first time, he understood that vulnerability was strength. The diner had transformed into a sanctuary of acceptance, a space where anyone could find their voice. Hours later, as the buzz of the diner began to settle, Darnell stood at the counter, taking it all in. His eyes met Mr. Lin's, who gave him a nod of approval. You've started something extraordinary, the billionaire remarked softly. Thanks to everyone, Darnell replied, holding the sense of accomplishment deep in his chest. As the last customers trickled out, Darnell reflected on the impact they had made together. Lives were changing, stories were being birthed, and connections were deepening, all because they dared to share their truths, and in that humble diner, where dreams had once felt distant and heavy, hope now simmered brightly, a real testament to the power of voices coming together. Darnell smiled. He found not just purpose, but a family in those who had gathered to uplift one another. The journey was only beginning, but he was ready to embrace it all. If you're inspired by Darnell's incredible journey, this is your moment to support the series. Subscribe immediately to our channel, so you don't miss exclusive stories like this. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and help us grow. Comment below with your thoughts and feelings about Darnell's transformation, and share this video instantly with at least 5 friends who must see this incredible tale of courage and connection. Don't wait not even one more second to show your support. Be part of the story.